Major General Sir George Parr, you're a senior official at the Ministry of Defence.
Yes.
And the British Army is currently going through a very difficult period, isn't it?
Is it?
Well, for example, the conviction of 3 British soldiers in Cyprus last week for the murder of a young woman by battering her to death with a spade.
Yes, yes.
The deputy commander in Cyprus, Brigadier Arthur Denaro, said that we should put this incident into perspective. What do you think he meant by that?
It's difficult to know, really, isn't it? I suppose he must have meant that there are 750,000 people living in Cyprus, and we only killed one of them. So, you know, it's not a bad proportion, really. Of course, what the Brigadier also said, and I think it was quite true, we must remember that it was these 3 individual men who were on trial, not the British Army, and certainly not their glorious regiment, the Royal Green Jackets, or the Royal Green Jackets with big red splodges on, as they're now called.
But this is the sort of thing that the Army always says after such an incident, isn't it? I mean, you just close ranks and protect your own.
Oh, well, I mean, these 3 men have nothing whatever to do with the Army.
In what sense?
Well, in the sense that there is a rule in the Army, and a very good one, I think, that you are immediately dismissed from the Army as soon as you murder somebody. Well, unless you're doing it as a part of your work, of course. And that's what happened here. And of course, also, there is this question. You see, you're getting all these, a whole big group of fit young men who are all together, miles from home, nothing to do but drink and lie in the sun all day. And you do bound to get these occasional outbursts of high spirits.
Violence.
Well, all right, violence, yes.
Extreme violence.
Well, yeah, all right, extreme violence.
Murder.
All right, murdering, yes. Murdering, yes. But, I mean, you don't have to go to Cyprus for that. I mean, you get it in every town and city up and down Britain every weekend, every Saturday night. You get groups of drunken young men just getting drunk, hanging around and attacking innocent passers-by. I mean, there's something wrong with our society. I mean, bring back national service, that's what I say. I mean, you know, a couple of years in the Army, that'll soon sort these people out.
But these people were in the Army, weren't
Well,
they?
yes, that is true.
And the fact is that some of the most dangerous towns in Britain are those towns which have army barracks, like Aldershot, where ordinary people simply can't go into the city on a Saturday night.
Well, who wants to go into Aldershot on the In any case, the Army are doing their best. I mean, they're taking these young men out and sending them abroad and letting them loose on foreigners, which, of course, is exactly what the Army does. I mean, that's
their
point.
core business,
Yes, that's
in
right.
a sense, yes. But,
Yes.
but this is the problem, isn't it, with a professional army in peacetime? I mean, the men that were heroes when they were fighting in the Falklands or in the Gulf are the very same men that you'd run a mile from if you met them in a pub on a Saturday night.
Yes, of course, the very same men. This is what we're faced with. It's a paradox. I mean, if you were set on by a lout with a broken bottle, I mean, who do you want to come to your defence? Would you want some sensitive, liberal, Guardian-reading person who comes off and says, you know, let's sit down and talk about this? Or do you want a bigger lout with a bigger broken bottle? That's what you want.
Yes, tell me, is this the thinking? Is this the thinking behind not wanting homosexual men and women in the armed forces?
Sorry, what do you mean, thinking?
Well, I mean, the assumption that homosexuals are somehow more sensitive and more liberal-minded than others.
I think it's rather a crude stereotype, isn't it? Really.
Then why don't you want them in the armed forces?
We don't like them.
And how do you know that you don't?
Because we
like
had a survey. We surveyed We surveyed the armed forces, and we had a random sample of...
So a whole range of questions was asked.
We asked certain questions concerning actual situations in army life. I mean,
such as...
Well, if you're asleep at night in your barracks, in your bed, would you want suddenly to be woken up in the middle of the night by a limp-wristed, perfumed person with heavy makeup clambering on top of you, putting their sexual organ into your bottom?
Yes, of course, there is a parallel here, isn't there, with the problem of racism, because only last week the Commission for Racial Equality came down very hard on the Ministry of Defence for the treatment of blacks in the army, of both physical and verbal abuse. I mean, people being called coons and black bastards, that sort of thing.
Sorry, you said abuse.
Well, I think if you were black, I think that might be thought of as abusive.
Well, I suppose if you are looking for nuances of a particularly hypersensitive, yes, I suppose you might think that, yes. But I don't think it's just affectionate banter, really, isn't it? I mean, I've been called Squiffy all my life. It's never worried me very much.
But it just seems to me, you see, that since it's obvious that the army dislikes blacks just as much as it dislikes homosexuals, why don't you just have a survey about that and get the answer you want and then kick the blacks out?
Well, we can't do that for various reasons. One is racism is against the law, and also they're not entirely equivalent, the two groups of people. After all, homosexuals have certain characteristics which don't necessarily present themselves as it were on first meeting.
People can disguise.
Yeah, you have that. You see, I mean, we could, for example, operate the policy we don't want to. We could that the American army uses, which is called about homosexuals, which is don't ask, don't tell. You can't do that so easily with black people. You see, that's
no, that would present certain difficulties.
Black people have certain characteristics. This is a quotation, you may have read this in the newspaper, from a colleague of mine at the Ministry of Defence, Squadron Leader Tony Cowan, who said, I quote, "Your Afro-Caribbean is a big chap." You see, that's rather flattering.
Yes,
very, I mean, at least shows there's no racism in the RAF, thank God. He's a big chap, often very athletic and more interested in sport and music. Well, now, you see, that is entirely true, but it is not the only characteristic of a black person, those things. So, I mean, you don't have to wait, for example, before one day in the showers you notice this big fellow jumping up and down singing "Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen" before you realise the sort of chap he is, you see, because you have realised that earlier through other indications.
Yes, the fact that he's black.
The fact that he's black is one of them, yes.
Yes, and this is about trust, isn't it?
I think it is. It's very much about what Michael Portillo said when he was announcing the results of this survey about homosexuality. The army needs to trust. The people in the army, it's a closer, they need to trust their mates, you see. And imagine a battlefield situation where a man is trying to... today's high-tech army, he might be trying to launch some smart surface-to-air missile. And he must absolutely count on the fact that as he's working out the coordinates of the target, there isn't a man standing behind him who is grappling with his trousers. Because, you see, the smart bomb could go anywhere.
Yes, I can see that. But in endorsing these attitudes by your soldiers, aren't you somehow justifying both racism and homophobia?
Oh, no. We have to protect. We have to stand up for our chaps because we ask them to do things. We ask our servicemen to do things that, on our behalf as a society, that we don't ask anybody else to do. To kill people. To kill people.
Danish tour guides.
No, that's just recreational. No, in their actual work, we ask them to kill the enemies of our society.
I see. Well, in that case, if society is being defended by the army, shouldn't the army reflect the ethnic diversity of this society? I mean, this, after all, is the argument for having black police officers.
Well, no, the police and the army are two different things. The police work directly with members of the public, the army doesn't. And the police, we don't ask the police to kill people. I mean, they do kill people, but only inadvertently, and then, curiously enough, blacks. But we don't ask them to do that as a matter of course.
No.
And in any case, I think the army does reflect society. I mean, you would say British society was homophobic and racist, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would.
Well, there you are then.
General Parr, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Sir George Parr, you're a Conservative backbench MP on the Eurosceptic wing of your party.
Well, I don't know that word. Eurosceptic, really. I think it's long past its sell-by date.
You don't like the sceptic part. It's sort of negative.
It's a bit negative, really. I think for what we really represent now, I think we should be talking about much more positive, more fundamental things.
I see. So
fundamental principles.
I see. So these principles, how would they be carried through into policy? I mean, are you in favour of complete withdrawal from the union, or do you want a free trade area?
You see, once again, these are side issues. Really, we get bogged down in these technicalities of convergence criteria and subsidiarity and all that. I think we should say what we mean.
I see. Well, that's refreshing. And what, in fact, do you mean?
Well, as I say, I was talking about positive fundamental principles, by which I mean something very deep in the British character, which we are in danger of losing, which is under threat, and which I think it could be summed up as a proud, traditional, and instinctive loathing of foreigners.
Well, that's very honest of you.
We are an honest people. The British are an honest people.
Yes.
Yes. But I don't take any personal credit for that.
No, that's just part of our character.
But just part of being British. Yes.
I see. Yes. Might it be objected that point of view is in itself xenophobic?
Well, again, I don't like the word xenophobic. It suggests irrational prejudice, and of course it's a Greek word, and I detest Greeks. I think we are talking here about plain historical fact. For example, the Germans are Nazis, and we beat them in the war. At the time when the French cravenly surrendered, the Italians behaved with their usual despicable cowardice. The Belgians allowed themselves to be overrun by anybody who happened to be passing. The Portuguese were all spies, and the Spanish, of course, kept out of it. They spent the whole war throwing donkeys off the top of church towers.
And Roman Catholic church towers.
Roman Catholic church towers, yes. At that.
You haven't mentioned Luxembourg in there.
Well, I don't know much about the people of Luxembourg, though I imagine women's armpits aren't anything to write home about.
Yes. Aren't you in fact there saying in a roundabout way that these foreigners are inferior?
Oh no! I think that would be misconstruing what I said. I think the British are superior, which is that's a different thing.
Superior in what sense?
Well, tolerance. For example, we're very tolerant people. We take people as we find them on the whole.
Yes. Forgive me, but you don't seem very tolerant to me.
Well, I don't see why not. I mean, if these foreigners want to be devious and arrogant and corrupt, by all means, let them be so. Yes,
Yes.
I mean, I don't. So long as they don't tell us what to do, you see, they don't interfere in the running of our affairs.
Yes. What aspect of their interference do you dislike most?
Virtually every aspect, really. For example, well, I'm just thinking of an example. The courts, the European Court of Human Rights, for example, which, as we know, is a puppet of the European Union, and it told us about, not shooting IRA suspects in Gibraltar. Now, frankly, I don't think any puppet court of the European Union should tell me who I can and cannot shoot on Crown territory. Simple as that.
Yes, but in fact, the European Court of Human Rights has got nothing to do with the European Union, does it?
Well, that doesn't alter my argument.
Why not?
Nothing alters my arguments, really.
Yes, I'm beginning to get that view. Perhaps you were confusing the Court of European Justice, which is
the European. Yeah, well, there again, you see, the European Court of Justice has just recently forced me to fire my butler.
I can't remember a judgment that...
well, not specifically on that, no, but it came within their judgment about the 48-hour maximum working week. Now, you can't employ a butler for a maximum of 48 hours a week. It's nonsense. So Jenkins had to go, and now he's, I don't know, living in a cardboard box somewhere.
Must be a great change for Jenkins.
Yeah, no. He had a very nice cardboard box next to the dog in the kitchen. But now he hasn't got a job, you see. And the thing is that my dinner guests are now waited on by a 14-year-old Peruvian girl with a very limited command of English and dirty fingernails.
But she's prepared to work longer hours.
She works a 105-hour week, but that is because she's an illegal immigrant. And I think it's appalling that I have been put in the position of having to break the law in order to fulfill a European directive of this kind.
And of course, it is the European Court of Justice which is underpinning the whole legality of the ban on British exports of beef.
I don't know what to say about that. I mean, I don't know what we have an army for. We have told these people, plainly and simply, that all British beef is completely safe. And not just that, but that some British beef is even more completely safe than other British beef is completely safe.
Yes, but they feel that we haven't taken enough steps to eradicate BSE.
What do they know about BSE, frankly, on the continent? There have been 17 cases of BSE in France. We've had 160,000.
So we must know more about it.
Of course we do.
But in fact, in France, when they isolate a case of BSE, they do slaughter the whole herd.
Well, of course, they hate animals on the continent. I mean, look at the way the Spanish treat their cattle. They wave capes at them and stick these things in them with tassels on the end. I mean, at least we give our cattle a sporting chance of killing people.
In the very long run, yes.
In the long run.
So, what do you think we should be doing?
Well, we should be standing up to them in a way which has not been done. And I'm a very strong and a loyal supporter of John Major as anybody, but he is the most craven apology for a person that you could possibly imagine. When the Herr Nazi Kohl came over, and he served this lunch and served beef, but he said, you can have chicken if you want. I mean, that's no... The Queen, the only person standing up to these people, thank God for it, is Her Majesty the Queen, who, when the garlic-eating person arrived, said he had he had to eat beef.
Yeah. He didn't have any alternative.
He just had any alternative.
And you approve of that rather sort of symbolic gesture?
Well, I think it was more than symbolic. I think the Queen, and God bless her for it, was prepared to risk herself and her whole household dying a hideous and lingering death in order to make her point.
So obviously what's most important to you is the idea of sovereignty, isn't it?
Well, no, what's most important to me is hating foreigners. But after that... Yes, the idea of sovereignty, yes.
Yes, and you feel that our destiny should be in our hands. The laws, the management of our economy,
Yes.
and I suppose defence would be
Defence in particular.
Yes, yes. So you'd be very much against any further integration of our forces with those of Europe.
Without any question, the control over the defence of our kingdom should remain where it is at the moment, in the hands of the United States of America.
Sir George Parr, thank you very much indeed.
It's a pleasure. George Parr, you are a name. I mean, that is to say, you are a private investor in the Lloyds of London insurance market,
yes.
which, as we know, in the last few years has had catastrophic losses. And the private investors, the Lloyds names, like yourself, you've lost a lot of money, have you?
Yes, rather a lot. Yes.
I see. I wonder, could you just... I mean, at the moment, the Lloyds of London are considering this week whether to offer you the whole of the Lloyds names a rescue package to draw a line, as it were, under your future debts, amounting, I think, to a total of £3 billion. And I don't know, is that right?
Yes, roughly £3 billion.
£3 billion pounds. Could you just explain how the Lloyds market operates? I mean, I know it's a very, very technical subject, but could you just, in your capacity as a name, what work do you do? I mean, is it difficult?
Well, at my end, my work largely involved picking up an envelope that came through the letterbox once a year, opening it, taking out a very large cheque, and sending it to my bank.
Yeah, I see.
So it was quite difficult, yes. But I got better at it with practice.
Did you? You found it difficult at first, did you?
Yes, I mean, like everyone, new at a game, one makes silly mistakes.
Did you? What sort of...
Well, I sort of threw the envelope out of the window, I remember, and tried to feed it to the parrot.
I see, yes. But you got the hang of it eventually, didn't you?
Yes, I picked up the technicalities after a few years.
Yes. Yes, I see that.
And I got into Lloyds because I was introduced to an agent at Lloyds.
Oh, right.
Stan.
Stan?
Something.
Somebody. Stan. Right.
And he made a financial proposition to me. What? He said, how would you like to make a great deal of money without doing anything at all?
And you took him up on that straight away, did you?
Not straight away, no. I'm not a complete fool, no. I said I'd have to think about it, and so I went and had a thorough discussion with my...
accountant?
No. What's the name of that? You know, people supposed to look after you. Oh, God, I can never remember anything.
Stockbroker?
No, it's, you know... God, I go mad. Sits opposite you at breakfast. Sort of long...
Wife?
Wife, that's it.
Yes. And yes, so you talked to her, and what did she say?
What about?
About whether you should be a name at Lloyds.
I see, yes. Well, I mean, she immediately put her finger on what might be the danger area.
Yes.
She said, would this involve you having to think? Which completely stopped me in my tracks, because that had never occurred to me.
So she was on the right lines then, your
she
wife?
Was, yes. So I rang Stan...
thing, yes.
Yes, and said, look, give it to me straight, man to man.
Yes.
Don't beat about the thing out in the bush.
The bush, yes.
Yes. Will this involve any mental activity of any kind?
Yes. And what did he say?
He was very reassuring.
Very good. And so you went ahead then, in fact, and what did you? I mean, how much did you invest in the market?
Oh no, I know this is highly technical, but I'll have to explain this. One of the most attractive things about Lloyds as an investment is that you don't have to invest any money.
Oh, I see. So
You just have to demonstrate that you have funds available.
I see. And you did have. I mean, you were quite well off, presumably.
Well, no, that's another misconception about names. We're not all rich men, you know. I mean, I'm just an ordinary bloke with a couple of 100,000 quid's worth of shares.
Yes.
And obviously I didn't want to sell those because they bring in an income, and in any case, I worked damn hard to get them.
Yes, I see.
Or at least my grandfather did.
But as far as Lloyds was concerned, all you had to do was demonstrate that you had these shares,
yes.
and that was enough for them. They, as it were, counted as your investment.
Yes.
And
yes,
so you went on earning the dividends from the shares, and at the same time earning the take, as it were, from Lloyds.
Yes, that's how it works. Yes.
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 I see. So then.
Well, for then many years, the check came in sort of regularly.
Yes.
You know, not huge sums,
no,
sort of 50, 60,000 pounds, that
yes.
sort of thing, but enough to take the family on a decent holiday.
Yep.
And then, about 3 years ago, I got the usual envelope, and inside it was a letter which mentioned the sum of £1.5 million. And so I rang up Stan and said, well done. It has obviously been a very, very good year. And he said, no, George, you haven't earned this. This is your share of the losses.
I see. So you must have been terribly shocked about it.
I was devastated.
I mean, what was it lost on? I mean, how the losses
Well, I don't
occurred?
know. There was an oil rig that blew up.
Yes.
And then there was the 87 hurricane. I mean,
Yes.
it was nothing to do with me. I've never been on an oil rig in my life. So it wasn't my fault. And as far as the hurricane was concerned, excuse me, I was very badly hit by the hurricane.
But yourself, is it? Yes.
Personally, yes. I lost several fine trees. and my gardener was blown into the trout stream.
Oh, yeah.
And that was the last I ever saw of him. And that was a tragedy.
Of course, a terrible thing.
Because
Yes.
one can't get into the orchard now for the weeds.
Yes, didn't the professionals who ran your syndicate, Stan and the underwriters and so forth, didn't they explain to you that you had unlimited liability? I mean, didn't you have meetings?
Yes, we used to meet 3 or 4 times a year at Ascot and Lloyds and that other place, you know, where they sort of...
The proms.
Wimbledon. You know.
Oh yes. Where they had boxers there, did they?
No, they have tennis players.
No. I mean hospitality boxers.
Oh, I see. Yes.
Hospitality boxers.
Yes.
Yes. I see. And so, but I mean, what do they didn't they explain to you about the risk? I mean, there was risk involved.
No, I mean, the insurance business is very well established. It's respectable. It's one of the safest industries there is.
Yes,
sure.
I know, but it is about risk. The insurance business. I mean, that is what it is. You take on people's risk. That's what insurance is.
Is it?
Yes.
Nobody ever told me that.
No. So are you? I mean, there's £3 billion that you're going to share. I mean, are you going to accept this offer from Lloyds?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it is very, very complicated business.
Yes.
But at least, I mean, Lloyds has at last realised that you can't just take everything away from a chap.
No.
I mean, if a chap's got practically nothing, then, well, that happens all the time.
Yeah. So you're going to.
But if a chap has got rather a lot, you simply can't take away all of it.
No. Because it involves
A complete change of life.
Complete
Change of life. And I mean, I entrusted my whole family's future to this man at Lloyds, and I feel very, very badly let down.
But if you, as you say, entrusted your whole family's future to this man, I mean, shouldn't you have checked up on what he was doing with the money? How it, no.
No, there's a perfectly straightforward agreement that I demonstrated that I had a lot of money, and in return, he made sure that I got a lot more. And it's as simple as that. And in any case, this man was a professional. I'm not a professional. And I couldn't go checking what he was doing from day to day, because in any case, I'm much too...
Too busy, yes.
No, not busy. What's the word? You know, when you don't have an idea about...
Stupid.
Sorry?
Stupid.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Thank you. George Parr, you are one of the most highly paid merchant bankers in the city.
Yes, I come from a long line of bankers, and
Yes.
yes,
And there has been a lot of controversy lately about the huge rewards paid to merchant bankers in the city.
well, to be frank, it is true that some of us who work in the city do get truly obscene amounts of money. That's why we do it.
Yes.
I mean, but people will pay us. People will pay us, and I moved banks 2 years ago. I left a very senior position with a very high salary, and I moved over to my present bank.
Mm-hmm.
And up for the challenge,
Yes.
and the risk. It was a tremendous risk when I did that.
What sort of risk?
Well, I gave up a £2 million bonus, which I would have got from my old firm.
So you had to forego that?
Yes, it's not an easy thing to do.
No. So what was it really that made you jump in that direction?
Well, as I say, I wanted the challenge. My basic salary they offered me was of course much higher, but that really wasn't it. I think in looking back on it, probably what tipped the balance was the £2 million compensation I got for the bonus that I would have had. I think that probably did it.
Roughly the same amount?
Well, more or less, yes.
Yes, I see.
So
what do you find so attractive about your present bank?
In the contract, when I started work, I was given what is called a golden hello.
How does that work?
It's obviously difficult to describe in layman's terms, but simply is that when I first arrived, I said hello, and they give me a cheque for £500,000. It's a sort of yes.
Is that unusual?
It's very common practice. Very common practice. It's a sort of it's an indication that you've started work, really. Sometimes the only indication.
But obviously this was a completely one-off payment.
Oh yes, of course. you couldn't have it again. No, I didn't get anything else until the end of my first month when I qualified for the golden hello again.
And what did that indicate?
That was a recognition, really.
That you were still there?
That I was still there. That I'd stuck it out for a month, through thick and thin.
Yes.
Hell and high water. And then I was about to start on my second month, which, of course, triggered my loyalty bonus.
Because in that time you hadn't gone and worked for someone else?
I couldn't actually go and work for someone else because I had in my contract what we call golden handcuffs. Which meant that I couldn't leave that firm.
This was another amount of money.
It was £250,000. That, and well, it was in their favour, you see, because if I'd have left,
yes,
they'd have had to pay somebody else for golden hello. So they saved £250,000 by doing that.
Yes. Well, you must have been very, very happy working there, weren't you?
Well, no. I think by the end of the second month, I felt I was getting in a rut, rather. I felt a bit restless, how one does. And so they gave me incentive payments.
Incentives?
Incentives to go to work, yes.
But you were being very, very highly paid anyway.
Yes.
So why did you need incentives on top of that?
Well, it is partly because I was being very highly paid. I bought a beautiful new house and a new wife. I bought a beautiful... when it's Monday morning and the alarm goes off and you think, goodness, 10 o'clock already, and... You look out of the window and there you see the trees and the lawns and the wife and the gardener and the lake and the crocodiles. And it was a beautiful, typical English scene, apart from the crocodiles, of course. And you feel, well, why should I? Well, I don't want to go to work. I want to stay here. You need something to get you in, really. So that's where the incentive payments came in.
But isn't there, forgive me, but isn't there a sort of vicious circle here? That, I mean, that they give you incentives to go to work, and so you get richer and richer and richer, and so you need
more incentives.
More incentives, and the house gets more and more beautiful, so you need more incentives to leave
absolutely.
it. I mean, doesn't there come a point where you just don't want to take the money anymore?
Well, it's funny you should say that. No. No. Although I did feel that money, certainly does bring its own problems, and I felt very much that there was something missing. But I was looking for something. I was looking for somebody, perhaps, for answers.
Some sort of spiritual guru.
Well, I was very lucky. I did find somebody, a really, really good tax avoidance specialist. And so since then, it's been more or less all right.
Because there is a problem about tax when you're being very, very highly rewarded.
He came up with yes, exactly.
I mean, there were these ways of paying people like yourself in diamonds,
gold bars.
They
closed that loophole. And coffee, they pay you in coffee beans, and
fine wines,
and paintings.
Really?
I got a matching set of Gainsboroughs, which was
sort of landscape.
I don't know. I never looked at them. They were too valuable to keep in the house, so they had to be put in a bank. So
you could go to the bank.
I went to the bank to look at them occasionally, and that was, but it took up a rather lot of time. So eventually, I just looked at the bank. Get the chauffeur to stop, and I'd look at the bank, and I found it very refreshing, very spiritually refreshing. Absolutely delightful.
But can I ask you this from a spiritual point of view? I mean, when you look in the mirror, do you think, am I really worth all this money that the bank is paying me?
Oh, well, yes, I think that after all, they wouldn't pay me otherwise, would they? I mean, they know I could have gone off to somewhere else, just like that, to another firm. Yes, certainly.
Particularly now since they fired you last week.
That's right, yes. Yes, they did.
As far as I know, the story is that one of your subordinates at the bank, a young trader, was fraudulently investing money and declaring huge profits from these investments which actually didn't exist.
They didn't exist,
right?
no,
right.
that's right.
And although you weren't personally involved in the fraud, it was your job to supervise him.
That was my job, yes.
And you didn't do it.
Well, I don't know how I could have done it, really. He was making a very great deal of money, so he said.
Yes, he had this company invested in called Sahara Relief.
Flood Relief.
Yes. That's right, but he said it was enormously profitable.
Well, it was a gold mine, he said.
Yeah.
Well, it actually was a gold mine, according to him. Curious name for a gold mine, of course, and a curious place to have one. But that's what he said it was. And he was making a very, very great deal of money.
But couldn't you have sort of checked up on him at all?
In what way, checked?
Well, you could have asked him some questions.
Well, what sort of questions?
Well, I mean, like, where is all this money coming from? I mean,
Well, yeah, I didn't want to get bogged down in technical details too much, because these traders, that they are very temperamental, and if they feel they're being interfered with, they get very highly strung, and they go off and work for somebody else, you see, and that.
Wouldn't that have been a very good thing?
He would, yes. But we didn't know that at the time.
No.
But eventually, and the other thing, of course, was that these profits that he was declaring from that company and from the Kalahari jungle clearance company, which he were huge, and not only were his bonuses tied to those profits, but so are ours, the executives, And
I see. Yes,
so,
yes, would be.
And we had meetings, to discuss whether we should ask him what was going on. I mean, we thrashed it out. It was very. Some of these meetings went on for I remember, I think, a minute and a half before we decided not to do it.
Yes.
But eventually, of course,
he was confronted. You confronted him.
Yes, we did say where is.
And you said, where is all this money coming from?
And he said, well, just flat out, he said, the fairies brought it. And I thought, well, thank God, there's an explanation. So it was all cleared up.
You said the fairies
brought it, yes.
You believe that? Did you?
Yes, I do. I mean, because in the city, you know, the saying is that your word is your bond, you see, and once you question that, I mean, you might as well be working in a madhouse.
Did you actually see any fairies?
Oh, come on, of course I didn't see any fairies. What a stupid question. No. I mean, he explained that only certain people can see the fairies. And he was one of them, and, you know, I would have been very suspicious if I had seen a fairy. I would have... It was somebody dressed up as a fairy.
So now you're out of a job.
Yes, I'm afraid so. Well, that's how it is in the city, you know, high risks and challenges, and then one day you're a high-flying executive, the next, as I am, out with nothing.
You have nothing?
I have nothing but the clothes I stand up in, a 2 years' salary, and my £3 million pension fund. And that's
all you have. That's all you could carry away.
Yes, that's right.
What are you going to do now?
Well, I'm certainly not going to sit around feeling sorry for myself. I'm going to sue the bank for the bonuses to which I think I'm entitled to for the last 2 years.
Forgive me, I'm not a banker, obviously, but I thought we'd established that the profits on which the bonus would be calculated, in fact, didn't exist.
Well, they didn't exist in the sense that they weren't there. But at the time, we didn't know that. At the time that my bonus would have been calculated, they existed in his mind, and in my mind, and the fairy's mind. And so I thought I was really entitled to it, really.
Well, forgive me, but I mean, what you appear to be saying, Mr. Parr, is that if you're successful, you should be highly rewarded. I think we'd all agree with that. But also, if you fail, disastrously fail, then you should also be highly rewarded.
No, certainly not. Absolutely not. No. If success should be highly rewarded. Failure should be compensated. Two entirely different things. I mean, the amount of money is the same as just two different things, you see. I mean, otherwise, if you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to attract top-quality people like me into the banking profession.
There wouldn't be the incentives.
Exactly.
George Parr, thank you very much.
Pleasure. I've been thinking recently, and I don't know, I'm probably going out on a limb here, I think there's something wrong, really wrong, with the moral state of this country. You know?
We're standing looking into an abyss.
Yes, absolutely. And it's the future. You know, I don't worry about the future of myself, you know, because my life is over, more or less. It's the children I worry about.
Well, after all, the children are our future, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
And the thing about children are intensely vulnerable people.
Yes, of course.
Preyed upon.
Who is going to protect those people? I mean, look at this little chap there. Look at that. I mean, looks innocent little angel face. I mean, how could anybody want to harm a little innocent mite like that?
No, that's Rat Boy.
Who? Sorry?
Rat Boy. You know that boy up north who sort of does 16 burglaries a day.
Oh, this? I can't see. Oh, yes, I can't see without my glasses. I can't tell the difference. So he's the one that they won't let into the school because he beats other teachers. That's the one, is it?
Little bastard. You know, I mean, kids today, if that was my kid, you know, I'd take the strap to him.
Well, his problem is he hasn't been brought up in a caring home like yours.
absolutely right. I mean, they're completely out of control.
You can't be soft on these kids because good thrashing is the only way they'll understand that violence doesn't get you anywhere.
You know, I met a man in here last week in this pub. I don't know where you were, and he told me that he'd had access to a survey which has been done in inner city areas.
Yes.
And it turns out that, on average, one school has been burnt down by the pupils for every working day of the year.
That's a frightening statistic, you know. I mean, if you hadn't told me that, I wouldn't have believed it.
Well, if I hadn't heard it in this pub, I wouldn't have believed it.
I mean, they complain about class sizes being too big.
Well, there you are.
I mean,
and not having any books.
well, of course they don't have any books. They burn them all, haven't they?
Yes. I mean, I think certain types of books should be banned anyway, because the only thing that children want to do with them is hit each other with them.
Yes. Combat books.
Big, heavy, unnecessarily heavy
collected
books.
works of Tennyson. I mean, he didn't realise, did he, when he was writing Maud and all that he was putting a lethal weapon in the hands of some of these children.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, of course, family life is completely broken down.
Well, we've got to do something about it.
Well, this man told me about another survey.
Yes.
Also pretty hush-hush.
Yes.
But it turns out that 1 in 4 of the children of this country have been abused.
Oh, that's appalling.
Isn't that just, you know,
wait a minute.
can that be right?
No, that can't be right. Can that be right?
I don't know.
I mean, let's look at it logically. That means 1 in 4 families are abused. No, can't be right, can it? I mean, how many people are in this pub now? Well, 4, in fact. There's you, and it's not me, I know that. And I'm sure it's not you.
No, it's not
Pete,
me.
and it's certainly not Gordon behind the bar.
No, I vouch for that.
Yes. Must be that fellow in the corner there. Appalling.
That's really disgusting.
Why on earth does Gordon allow people like that in the pub?
He's a child molester, for God's sake. I mean, who is he? Do you know him?
I've never seen him before in my life, no. Well, it's a good
Thank God we found out in time.
Exactly.
Is that right?
I mean, we could have. I mean, you could have got him to babysit for you.
For my daughter?
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah.
easily I could. I mean, admittedly, she's 38, but I mean, the principle's exactly the same.
Yes.
Mind you, it's not entirely his fault. I mean, it is a national problem, isn't it?
I'm not saying that you can blame him alone. No. I mean, it'd be easier if you could. You could just lock him up and sterilise him.
You mean put him in a bucket of boiling water?
Yes. But, you know, I don't like to think of myself as a vengeful person. I don't think I'm a reasonable enough man. I take people as they find them, you know. But you know, there's something's got to be done about this, because I don't want to, you know, I don't think we should panic, but we are standing on, as you say, on a moral abyss.
Something's got to be done.
And we've got to do something. And I think what the problem is, and it may not be his fault entirely, people like him. But you see, the thing is that the working classes, or what used to be called the working classes, they're not tired enough. Because, you know, they late at night they've still got all the mentally alert, you know, physically fit.
Oh, I see. And then they just get up to some depravity.
Absolutely. Yes. You see, because he's unemployed, so he's not tired from
absolutely,
working.
he's on benefit.
And more than that, when they get home, you see, they have vacuum cleaners. and fridges and all these labour-saving devices, you see, and so there's nothing to tire them out.
They don't have to do the housework.
No, exactly.
Well, when I was growing up, I don't know about you, I mean, people came home from work exhausted.
Yes.
And then everybody had their own appointed household tasks.
Yes, absolutely.
Didn't they?
I remember I used to have to scrub the steps.
Yes. Well, I shelled the peas.
Well, there we are. See, we all...
That's what I did. And then it, you know, you turn on the wireless, and the wireless would tell you it was 9 o'clock, and then you go to bed tired but happy.
That's right. I remember in the 40s the King used to come on at 9 o'clock, didn't he?
Yes,
King
right.
George
Yes,
VI used to come on, yes,
every night.
Every night at 9 o'clock, and he used to say, I remember that. And that's that sort of stutter of his. He used to say, "Good evening. It's bar. It's bar. It's bedtime."
And then we'd go up to bed.
Toddle off to bed, yes. Well,
I don't. We've just got to get back to those days somehow. I don't know how, but it's got to be done.
Well, I think banning vacuum cleaners is something.
You think taking the vacuum cleaners away from the
yes, I think
working class
I'm
people
not saying it's the complete answer, no.
No.
Well, I think it's an answer. Yes.
Well, it certainly is an answer, yes.
Yeah.
The trouble is, I don't know that I could manage without my vacuum cleaner. I mean, frankly speaking, lately it's the only thing that gives my wife any pleasure at all.
Leslie, I wasn't suggesting that people like you and me should have our vacuum cleaners taken away. I was meaning people like,
people like him.
People like him.
People on benefit.
Poor
people.
People from the sections of society which cause, probably no fault of their own, cause trouble. Have the vacuum cleaners taken away from them.
And of course, it does have the added advantage that it's relatively easy to define a vacuum cleaner.
Yes. As I say, it's not the whole answer, you see, because fridges too, I think. Because fridges, yes.
Fridges.
Well, I think fridges are responsible for this proliferation of frozen peas that you see everywhere. You see, we want to get rid of that.
Sorry, Peter. I'm sorry. Maybe stupid, but how is it that by banning frozen peas we're going to heal this fractured society of ours? I don't quite see.
By the very fact that, as you pointed out yourself, of shelling peas. That's what people. If you don't have frozen peas, you have to shell peas.
You have to shell them. Yes, that's true.
What goes on now in these council estates? Yes. You see, in these is the families are there, and then the teenage son says, well, Mum, I'm off now to score some crack. But if he could say, not until you've shelled those peas, it would be different.
Very, very true.
Because. You see, then he finished shelling the peas, and he'd probably say, "Oh, wait, it was a bit late to go and score some crack."
And also, he'd be exhausted because it's a very exhausting task.
That's the whole point.
So he'd go off to bed. Probably.
He'd go off to bed. Yes. So that's the drug problem. You see, solved.
Just like that.
Yeah, just as a stroke. Yes.
Gosh.
Yes. Yeah, I just say, it's not the whole thing, really. I mean, I don't say that banning vacuum cleaners and fridges, is going to work overnight. I mean, suddenly we're going to wake up the next day and find ourselves in a what's the word for it? When in the state where everything's perfect. When you say it's like we're living in
Tokyo.
Tokyo, yes. We're in Tokyo. I mean, no,
of course.
It won't be like that,
No.
But it's an obvious. Common sense first step.
It's a first step.
Yes. Mind you, you wouldn't get politicians if you said that to politicians.
Oh, God, no.
He'd laugh in your face, of course.
Yes.
But that's because...
They've got no common sense.
They've got nothing up here.
Nothing up there.
George Parr, we are approaching the last few days of the most serious moment of recent British history.
So I gather, yes.
Yes. George Parr, I understand that's not your actual name, is it?
No. My real name translates as Zergon the Annihilator. But I find that an encumbrance socially.
Yes, you would, doesn't it?
Cocktail parties and so on.
Yes, I can imagine. It doesn't break the ice very easily. And you're from Mars, I gather.
Yes, I am. Middle Mars.
Middle Mars, yes. Yes. Is that your own body that you've got?
No, I've assumed this form in order to circulate more easily on Earth.
Yes.
Normally, at home, well, it's sort of difficult to describe it as sort of a small blob of highly toxic jelly.
That's what you are in Mars.
Yes,
I see.
yes.
Well, it's difficult for you to communicate in that form
It's
with human beings.
Yes, very difficult to hold a civilized conversation, in that form, because people have very little in common with a small blob of toxic jelly.
Yeah.
I mean, there are exceptions.
Yes.
But you can't spend all your life talking to Michael Howard.
So you are in essence an alien life form.
Yes.
And are you here on business?
No, it's purely business. Yes, we on Mars are looking for places to expand into.
Oh, right. And you've chosen Britain.
Well, yes, it's a possibility. Yes, I'm just here to look at the lie of the land.
Yes, well, you've chosen a good moment to look at the lie of the land. When you say expand, what...
Well, usually we move into a place and enslave the local population and get them to do menial tasks.
Oh, yes. Oh, right, yes. Well, we have experience of that. They're called Japanese car manufacturers. But...
Yes, I mean, normally we like to negotiate with the government in power to give them advance warning of our enslavement possibilities,
yes.
And also, in case there are any tax incentives we can take advantage of. But it's proved very difficult this time.
Is it?
Because, as far as I can see, I can't find the government. I mean... there's one lot of people who say they're the government and another lot of people who say they're going to be the government. I mean, don't you know who the government is?
Well, we are, actually, at the moment, in the process of changing our government, or not, as the case may be.
Why, is it broken?
Well, some would say yes and some would say no.
Well, why doesn't the government just kill the people who say no?
Well, that's not the way we do things
well, at least
here on Earth.
lock them up.
Well, that is one of the ideas, yes. But we do have a proper procedure for change of the government. It's called an election.
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yes, you really must be from Mars. But it is a proper procedure.
I see. Well, that makes some sense, because I've been terribly confused.
Have you?
Listening to people, because one lot of people say this is the best place in the world to live and the best run. And another lot of people say this is an awful place to live and appallingly run. But it would be much better if they were allowed to run it and not change much.
Yes.
And that's the election.
That's what we call an election.
I
yes.
see. And who decides who's going to be the government?
Well, we have what is called a democracy, and that is to say, it's sort of counting heads. I mean, everybody has a vote.
So everybody decides?
Well, in theory, everybody decides, but actually, in this case, it'll be a relatively small number of people who will decide the actual outcome.
People with more heads than other people, is that right?
No.
More intelligent people, better informed people.
No. These people are basically the people who can't make up their mind. They are what we call floating voters, and the parties are very desperate for them to vote for them. You see.
So the people who choose who the government is going to be are the people who can't decide about anything. Yes, well, I suppose that makes sense.
Yes.
And who are these political parties and what do they do? Because as far as I can see, they just rush around shouting at each other, calling each other crooks and, things like that. But then, I come from Mars. What would I know?
No, you've got it about right, I think. Yes, but although there are differences of political philosophy. The Conservatives, on the one hand, believe that things should more or less stay as they are. And diametrically opposed to them is the Labour Party, who believe... And then there's the Liberal Democrats, but they probably won't win because not very many people will vote for them.
People don't like them?
Oh, no, people like them, yes, they like them on the whole.
I see, but why won't they vote for them?
Because, well, they like their policies, they like their ideas, but they're worried that they would cost too much money.
And people haven't got the money?
No, they've got the money, they want to keep it.
See. And where does the dog come in?
What?
The dog you worship.
What dog?
He's on the television all the time with sort of stirring music and...
Oh, no, oh, no.
Is he your leader?
Oh, no, the bulldog. No, you're talking about the British bulldog. He's a symbol. No, he's just an animal. He's incapable of rational thought. He couldn't possibly be a... Oh, well, I suppose... but no, he is a symbol. He's a symbol of Britain and a symbol of British determination to keep things we hold sacred from falling into the hands of foreigners, you see.
I see, you're frightened of foreigners.
Well, we're very worried that we're under threat from foreigners.
Well, I can understand that, because when I was trying to park my spaceship at Gatwick Airport the other day, they wouldn't let me in because people were planting bombs there. These must be the foreigners.
No, they're British people. No, it's not them we're afraid of. There are other people we find much more frightening than them.
Who?
Well, Belgians. Germans and French people. Because, yes, they're much more frightening.
And even more frightening than Martians, because I do have to say that if we decide to invade here, not to put too fine a point on it, we shall lay waste the whole land and annihilate the total population.
Yes. Could we keep the pound? Doesn't make much difference. Oh, well,
to
that's
us.
all right then. I think that's
But come back to these Belgians.
You,
why are you so frightened of these Belgians when they're not trying to kill you?
Well, it's government policy that we should be frightened of the Belgians. Well, that's not actually. Actually, government policy is that we should wait and see.
Wait and see what?
Wait and see whether we're right to be frightened of them.
So why are you frightened of them now?
Because the government think that if we're really frightened of them now, they stand a better chance of winning the election.
So you're not really frightened of the Belgians, it's the government who wants you to be frightened of them.
Well, yes, I mean, the government actually started off the election by wanting us to be bored, but that didn't seem to work very well, so now they want us to be frightened.
And what about the other party, the
Labour Party? They want us to be frightened and bored. This is what's called a mature democracy.
Yes. So who's going to win?
Oh well. No, we do have very sophisticated techniques for measuring voting intention, opinion polls, as they're called.
I see. So if you know in advance who's going to win the election, what's the point of having the election anyway?
Well, there is a problem. Is that people lie to the opinion polls.
Why should they lie?
Because they're ashamed of saying who they're going to vote for.
So let me get this right.
But you see, if when they actually vote in the real election, it's a secret ballot, so they don't have to tell anybody who they voted for.
So an election is when a small group of people who can't make up their minds secretly choose a government that they're ashamed of.
That's right. Yes.
You're obviously a great deal more sophisticated than we thought. I think we might have to drop our invasion plans altogether.
We're slightly relieved about that.
I mean, we can't keep up, can we?
Well, you have alternative targets, as it were.
Well, yes. I mean, absolutely. I mean, in a rational universe, what we'd like to do is to go and take over a whole galaxy somewhere, but that, unfortunately, isn't possible.
You can't do that. No. You haven't got the technology.
Oh, no, we have the technology. We could do it, and we ought to do it, but, we can't.
Why not? What's the problem?
Well, it's the old story,
What's that?
The unions.
You have a problem with the unions, do you?
Can't do a bloody thing.
Oh. Well, why don't you kill them? That's what we did.
Interesting.
Thank you. George Zergon the Annihilator.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.